How's it going? My name is Steve. I'm an AR developer and a comic book illustrator, former football player, and I'm currently trying to get into medical school. And today I'll be talking to you about really the history of AR. One of the things that I really sort of noticed is that with AR, it's been around for a while, and quite frankly, I didn't really notice. I didn't know that, and I really thought that as I dive deeper, I should know a little bit more about the history of AR and the history of AR, why it was actually created. Who created it? Why was it created? Why is there such a booming industry for it? Because it's one thing to use it, but it's another thing to understand why it's being used and understand sort of the context in which you would use it. And so it allowed me to go down this rabbit hole of a little bit of research because like I'm a researcher. I have a master's in art and psychology and sports medicine. As I further my career in education, I try to make that information that I'm finding a little bit more accessible. And so for anybody that's just curious, this isn't necessarily a developmental tutorial or series or part of any project. It's just understanding your history, and if you understand where you came from, then you can understand where you can go. And so with the when was it created? That's one of the big things. It's like, people were thinking that it came out when Pokemon Go came out, and it definitely didn't. Some of the earliest AR systems that we know of were developed by the U.S. Air Force at the Armstrong Laboratories in around 1992. And so it's been around for a while. I was born in the 90s, and so I was literally 2 years old when AR was developed. Obviously, a lot of the booming technology is coming out of the Air Force and the military, but that's just because there's a lot of working. The military just creates a lot of opportunities, and I think that's just one of the fortunate things that we have for this country is that we have the opportunity to serve our country and also push the culture for it. And so anybody that's bashing the military, I wouldn't do that, bro. It was a project called Virtual Fixture that allows users to train and practice certain skills and tasks to improve their performance. And really, that like we're seeing sort of that concept coming up in healthcare now that we have, everything is going virtual, at least during the coronavirus and COVID-19. AR is picking up because things are becoming more obsolete. And so remote learning is becoming really a new normal for us. And in the healthcare field, every doctor that I talk to and it's crazy, every medical student, every pre-med student, every healthcare professional, every doctor that I talk to, every physician, they're all thinking the same way. They're all thinking about how it's going to improve training for healthcare professionals, for physicians, for surgeons, so that we minimize the amount of mistakes that are being done. And we also minimize the cost for training all these things. And so if you use augmented reality, you're able to train at a low cost, more effectively, and more frequently without wasting the resources that any entity has. And so it really creates equity. And it really creates equity in a lot of different industries where you don't have to go to a training center. You could do all that stuff at home. And we really sort of need that now. And so who created it? That's really the big thing. Virtual Fixtures technology was developed by Louis Rosenberg when he was working as a researcher at NASA. And that's pretty crazy because that dude's still alive. The founding father of augmented reality is just alive and kicking right now. I think he's like in his 60s. And that's pretty crazy how like new it is. Because often we think about these technologies and we think about, them just sort of not being tangible for us, but it's really somebody that we know. It's somebody that exists among us. It's not some omniscient being. And so, why was it created? It was created because it was a way to amplify human performance in real world physical tasks. And so, augmented reality literally was created to use as a practice and teaching tool. Often a lot of people are using it for enhancing experiences, enhancing the senses, but it was really used to enhance performance. And by enhancing performance, it makes people more efficient at what they're doing. Because really, at the end of the day, like, we're all defined by what we do. We're all defined by how we do things, how well we do them. If you do things very well, then you have more significance in the society that we live. And so with the military, obviously, everything is focused around doing tasks. And so with the military, I mean, obviously, we could see why AR was such a big thing. And so the last thing is, where was it invented? And that's always one thing that we often think about. It's probably someplace in Europe or someplace in Asia. But really, augmented reality was invented at the Armstrong Laboratory. Armstrong Labs was formed in the 1990s and was named after General Harry G. Armstrong, which is the father of space medicine. So he was a physician. He was a doctor, and it was located in Brooks City Base, Texas. Out of all places, augmented reality was created in Texas, and in 1997, the lab merged into the Air Force Research Laboratory, which is now considered the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. And so a lot of things have changed. Now sort of like the base is in Ohio, but AR originated in Texas. And that's really interesting. That's a really interesting sort of history to understand when we're talking about these spaces, because they're these spaces that we could actually like go to and trace that history. And so for any AR enthusiasts, they're looking for places to go and physical locations to contextualize like where the history is. Check out those places. Do some research. Hopefully, when things start to die down, I'll have the opportunity to do that as well. And so with that, glad we're able to stick around and learn a little bit of history of augmented reality. The real big thing is, keep learning, keep exploring, keep doing the things that are impactful and great, and use augmented reality to enhance what you're doing. It's really accessible in a lot of stuff for a lot of different platforms, and a lot of devices are really making things really great for that. And so if you're watching this on a tutorial series or anything, definitely continue watching and learn more about AR through activism and coding and non-coding and creating. And if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're watching this on or listening to this on the podcast, definitely write a review, subscribe, check out all the stuff Stuck on an Island and the Stucky podcast, and kind of go from there. So without further ado, catch you guys on the flip side.